Good morning. All right, let's see. It's taking a minute to get my other screen going. Okay. So, we're gonna do our orange today. How is everyone feeling about their grapefruits? I think it's my favorite one so far. I really like it. But I'm excited. We're gonna do something a little bit different for our orange. So, you can kind of choose. If you decide you don't like this, then you can maybe do this. And if you don't like this, then you can go back and do this. 5 p.m. here, so good afternoon. Well, good morning from us because it is still early. I have been sleeping in most of the week. I woke up like a half an hour ago. We like to sleep in our house. It's my favorite too, says Megan. Yes, it's so good. Okay. So adorable. Thank you. Okay. So we are going to use our darker orange. I am using an old one and I feel like they always get tangled. So anyways, 947 is what we're going to work with today. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use 4 strands like we did on the grapefruit. And today we are going to do a blanket stitch. I don't think I've taught this one in a long time, so I'm excited. Grab my needle here. Oh, it still has orange on it. Okay. So the only thing with blanket stitch is we want to hopefully not need a new piece of thread as we're working on it. So I have a little bit longer than I would normally use. Okay. We're kind of going to do the same thing as the grapefruit and just draw a little circle in the middle for our like white parts to go into. So we don't want to go into that. Okay, blanket stitch. I always have to think about it because, okay, and I'm gonna start right here and work my way around. Do you ever have things that you're like, okay, I have to like think about this before I start it? I always do this with chain stitch as well. I'm like, okay, where do we start? What are we doing? Okay, so we're gonna come up in the middle, down on the edge. Actually, I don't want to start there. Excuse me for a minute. Oh man, I can't come back up in that hole. Hang on. Hold on, rethread my needle here. Okay, I'm gonna come up to the edge. So, but still the same thing, like leave a little bit of an edge so that you can do the rind. I've never seemed to start blanket stitch correctly and have to start over. I do too. So we'll see if I have to start over. I don't think I will. So we're just gonna do very small blanket stitches because we're gonna do it in a whole circle. So we're gonna just keep our loop open. Oh, there's something in my eye, hang on. I can't see. Okay. So we're gonna keep this loop open and we're gonna come over just a little bit, like really, we're gonna make some really small stitches here. Okay. Now the question is, do I remember? I did it yesterday and now I'm like questioning myself. And then we're gonna come back down here should have practiced this morning instead of sleeping in. And we're gonna keep that loop open. We're gonna make another stitch that's just really small like that. And pull it snug. Yes, there we go. Okay, so we're just like connecting. They're connected in a little chain. So we're gonna come back down here. So we're always gonna come up at the top and down in the center. I might have done that backwards, but it seems to think it's gonna work, so. Oh, that one was a little bit bigger. And you just want to keep this pulled like pretty snug, because otherwise your stitches will start to get really loose and like fall apart. So, which is okay. There's ways to fix it. So if you're having an issue, don't stress about it. Okay? So just like make sure you pull that snug before you move on to your next stitch. Oh, what am I doing here? That's not the right spot. Back down in the center. And don't get your center ones too far apart. Like, even if you have to use the same hole a couple of times, that's gonna be okay. So this is a stitch that's used like on blanket edges, like to bind them. That's why it's called a blanket stitch. So if you can keep this going all the way around without ending it, that is ideal. But you can always, like if you need to, end it and start over. What's up, sis?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll be done in about 25 minutes, okay?
Okay.
You got a stuffy nose? All right. See, we made it work. I'm so excited. Just takes a little remembering like which way we want our stitches to go. That's getting a little bit close to the edge there. Oh, gosh. I did it again. Down in the center. So you could also, because we're going to use this same orange for the rind. So if you want to use a different orange, I mean, that's why we have two, so that you have an option. I thought that this orange was too bright for the grapefruit, so that's why we have two oranges. But you could totally use two on the orange like we did for the grapefruit as well, if you want to use that lighter orange for the inside or outside. And then I normally will turn my hoop while I'm working, so it's all the same way, but I'm just gonna hold that part down with my thumb while I keep going, because I want to keep that nice and snug. How do we feel about this? I think I still prefer the lazy daisies, but wanted to give you options because I know not everyone loves those. Plus, it's always fun to learn something new. So, you are on your own for your lemon down at the bottom next to the grapefruit. This little slice. You can use either of these options for that. Both will work. So if you're doing the blanket stitch, just start on one edge and work to the other. But that's gonna be your homework tonight, or this weekend, I guess. There's no stitch along classes Saturday or Sunday. So you have all weekend to do these two and then decide what you wanna do with your lemon. One, two, three, four, five, yeah. Then we've got 5 more fruits. Or you could always do this for your lemon, and then if you decide you like the lazy daisies better, you could like do that for the orange or whatever you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to end these here, and I'm just gonna do the rest as straight stitches because changing the angle, I'm worried about changing the angle down here. So when we end the blanket stitch, we're gonna end it like we do the lazy daisies and just tack it down right there on the other side of our loop. So I've got that loop in there and it'll just pull it straight down. Okay, so now if you have any of these parts that are kind of sticking up or just not laying how you want them to, you can go back with a stitch like this. I'm over here on this edge here. And just like tack it down. One on, just like a tiny little stitch from one side of the stitch to the other, like that. So you can still kind of, like you'll be able to see it, but then it'll lay nice and flat, okay? So I'm gonna come back over here and I'm just gonna do some straight stitches from the center to the edge of this line. And I wanna keep them about the same distance as our blanket stitches were, but just so we can finish out that orange. Yes, honey, go ahead. Hi, sweetie. Did you get up? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. What the heck?
The cats, they're meowing down there. All right. So there we've got our cute little orange, and then we will do some white. Okay. So the white, we're gonna do the same because I could not think of another way to do around the edge. So we're gonna do a back stitch, and then the rind will do a stem stitch. So I've got the 3 again so that I can do like the inner segments. And then those are just gonna lay right over top of the orange stitches, so. I'm just gonna come over the top and into the center. You'll kind of have to search for your lines where you drew them. Right here. No. Oh, hang on, I've got a knot. So you could also, like if you want this filled in more, you could just do like straight stitches in the middle of these like blanket stitches. I kind of like the open because everything else is so like heavily stitched. The watermelon, the pineapple, the banana, they're all like really heavy stitches. So I kind of like that the orange and the grapefruit have some negative space. Okay, so there's our little segments. Let me tie that off and then we will just do a back stitch around the edge. Oh, look, I have a big loop. Somewhere I had a knot and it stayed around. So if I ever have that happen, I just like get this into my knot so that it's like pulled tight in there, because I don't want that to loosen my stitches on the front somewhere. And then I can just cut them both. Okay, so I still have my 3 strands in my needle. I'm just gonna double them over and tie them together at the end. Okay. Oh, let's see, other way. Okay. So I'm just gonna start over on this side like I did with my blanket stitch and just back stitch around this. Oh, that was a little bit too close. I don't want to overlap my orange. Okay, so one thing with back stitch that I haven't really talked about, but sometimes that I do anyways. If I'm trying to save a little bit of thread, instead of going to do another back stitch like over here and then go here, like that's what so this one came here to here and then I went here to here. So my next one I'm gonna go from here to here. So I'm gonna do like a front stitch and then a back stitch and then a front stitch and then a back stitch. You just have to go like every other one because you can like alternate where you're putting in your stitches. So then the back looks like a dashed line instead of a solid line. But I don't want to get a new piece of thread if I can avoid it. So I'm going to try to save a little thread here. What are the cats biting?
Yeah.
He wants you to see what the cats are biting, sis.
Okay.
This becomes a problem if you're going to do a whipped back stitch though, just so you know. If you're stitching like this and then you're gonna whip it, just make sure your last stitch is a back stitch. Otherwise you can't come back up in that same spot to go backwards and whip it. Almost there, and then we'll do our edge. I'm just gonna do one a little bit bigger instead of doing two tiny ones. Okay. All right. So there's the edge, which is a little harder to see. What is going on with this? This feels like it's like too close. All right, so we are going to do a stem stitch on the edge. Where is my needle? Oh, there it is. So I'm just gonna do 4 strands because that's what I used for the center. And so a stem stitch and a whipped back stitch look really similar, but a stem stitch is just twisted as you're stitching instead of like going back and making it look more twisted. So same thing, we're gonna start on this edge and work our way around. So with a stem stitch, we're going to do a stitch. Now keep these fairly smallish, like the size of your back stitches or just slightly bigger. Okay, so we're gonna keep, hey bud, stop shaking the table, okay? Okay. So we're gonna keep our loop open and on the outside. It does matter, we want our loops to be on the outside edge. You don't want to hold it this way to stem stitch. You want it on the outside edge of the curve. So we're gonna come up in the middle and then pull it snug. And then we're gonna do another stitch. So the size of this stitch from here to here, we want from here to here, okay? So keep your stitches consistent. I kind of like that there's a back stitch there because that can kind of gauge how big my stitches are. They're about 1.5 back stitches. So right now I'm halfway to this one. So if I come over to here, which is 1 more back stitch, it will be about the same size. So these will be consistent. So you're always gonna do 1 stitch and then come up in the middle. So your middle is gonna be where your last one ended. Hey, you guys, can you take your conversation into the other room, please? Okay, I'm gonna not stitch where the raspberry or where the strawberry is, because those strawberries, I mean, we could stitch over top of the orange, but I don't really want to. So to end this, we're just gonna come back down where that other stitch ended. So you can see how it's kind of like twisted. Okay, Roman, can you go in your room, please, bud? And then I'm gonna start again right here where the strawberry ends. I mean, you could keep going if you're worried about it, but I don't want to stitch over top of that. So the nice thing about not doing a whipped back stitch on this is that we're not going to be trying to snag the threads of our watermelon and then our pineapple. I do prefer, I mean, they look really similar, but I still prefer how a whipped back stitch looks over a stem stitch. So I generally use it more regularly than I do a stem stitch. If I want like a twisted look like this. So I'm gonna leave that up to you. And actually, you could probably use all 6 strands if you wanted to on this one. It's a little bit thinner than I was expecting it to look. I am also a lot better at making sure that my back stitches are more cohesive than I am at stem stitches. So my stem stitches start to get really big if I don't pay attention. And also, I would say finish your pineapple before you do this. Otherwise, you're gonna be trying to stitch under this orange because the orange is in front of the pineapple. So we want it to lay on top. Hey buddy, you are shaking my table. Can you please stop? Make everyone sick with the bouncing. Okay. That is it. What do we think? I still think this is cuter. I think this is cute, and it'll be better when the lines are erased as well. Like once we erase lines, it'll look better because right now we can see all that black under there. But anyways, there's your orange. Okay, so that is it for me today. Don't forget to do your lemon wedge over the weekend, and then next week we will start with our kiwis, or our kiwi, and then strawberries. We've got a lime, blueberries, and raspberries are next week. So get your lemon done, and I will see you Monday at 10 a.m. Thanks for coming. Have a good weekend. Bye.